Hey guys, so we're going to give you a quick example here of some food chains and food webs. Remember that we're talking about energy and matter and ecosystems, and our energy always comes from the sun. So you can see that our area is very well lit because the sun is coming down onto the nice grassy savanna or whatever biome this is. Okay, so ways that organisms are going to pass energy is called a food chain or a food web. Remember, that was one of our feeding relationships. So when we talked about interactions in communities, I mentioned feeding relationships, predator-prey interactions, and how those feeding relationships are shown. Okay, so remember that a food chain is just a small part of a food web. Okay, a food chain is just a small part of a food web. And you're going to remember this from all the way back in lesson 1, which we did weeks and weeks and weeks ago. Okay, so first of all, a food chain is always going to consist of your producer. So the things like these trees or these bushes here, those are your producers. The producers are going to be eaten by a type of consumer that we call an herbivore. Okay, so this zebra, for example, is going to eat, he probably eats grass. Okay, so the zebra is going to be your herbivore. We sometimes call them primary consumers. So it's our first level of consumer. Okay. The zebra then is eaten by the secondary consumer. So in this case, it might be a tiger. Okay, the tiger is going to come over and eat the zebra. Okay, and that's your secondary consumer. So the energy so far has been passed from the plants to the primary consumers, okay, the herbivores that are eating those plants, to the secondary consumers, usually omnivores or carnivores, that are going to eat these herbivores, okay? And then these guys, a couple of things can happen. Number one, this could be the top predator in this food chain, this tiger, okay? If it is the top predator, and that can happen with secondary consumers, eventually this tiger is going to die and things are going to start to decompose it. So bacteria or insects, my assistant is not paying attention. Okay, so insects might start to break down this dead body, and they're going to transport the energy and the matter, it could be carbon, it could be nitrogen, back into the system. This is going to go into our soil here and then go back into our producers. Okay, or what could happen is after he's done eating his zebra, he could come across another predator that's bigger than him. Tigers don't normally do this, but we're working with what we have here. So maybe he comes across a lion, not as friendly, much bigger than him, and the lion goes ahead and eats that tiger. So we have our, again, producer, we have our primary consumer, we have our secondary consumer, and then we call these the tertiary consumers. We can certainly go up from tertiary, but usually we end with tertiary consumers. And then these guys, along with bacteria, are what we call our decomposers. Okay, so just a quick overview. If you have a young sibling at home that has some of these similar toys, feel free to play along and teach them all about food chains and food webs.